Speaking of, the three ball from Dalton Knecht was on display last night. You've seen this team in person a number of times, Tom, both home and away for the Vols. What have you thought as the season has progressed, finishing with the regular season title last night, but what Dalton Knecht has added to Tennessee, what Zakai has done coming back from his injury that he suffered a year ago?
Well, I'm probably the worst guest you could ever have on, because all I would do is repeat all the same platitudes that Vol fans have been hearing generally all season, but really since Dalton Knecht took over. And this team has everything that it needs in terms of an identity, the cohesion, and the tools to go on a deep run. There have been times where I've seen concerning issues, but the coaching staff has always, in my mind, found an answer. I'll give you a quick example. The game at A&M was, at the time it wasn't a horrible loss. A&M was playing well. They were a tournament team, yada, yada. But I thought the way that they used their size, their backcourt size, to disrupt Zakai and get the ball out of his hands, tip his passes, trap him in the corner, etc., that seemed like a concern to me. And I said, leaving that game, well, that's something Tennessee's got to fix, because if you go against a bigger team in the tournament, they could employ the same type of attack and due to Zakai's stature, use that against him. So what did they do last night? In a similar situation, they put the ball in Dalton Knecht's hands. And if you run the pick and roll with him, then he can pass right over the top of it. So I think they have an answer to every problem that can come up, and it starts with having a go-to scorer that we haven't seen at Tennessee in a while, with the three-level scoring that Dalton is capable of putting together. So I'm as impressed as anybody with the season they've had and the way they've managed it.
Did it seem like the officials allowed more physicality last night? Which, hey, I liked it, but did you notice how they let him play, especially in the paint?
Oh, without a doubt. And when you say the paint, I think most listeners think only of post play, but the physicalness with which South Carolina specifically was guarding Dalton underneath, the action that they run, the floppy action that Santiago Vescovi really took advantage of, where you're on the block and you can choose to come off of either post player screen, and you can choose which corner to come to, was the epitome of that last night, because whether it was Studi or Clark, whoever they had, they were literally, and Tennessee defends the same way, hugging him and talking with Dalton after the game. And I mentioned this to him, looking at his arms. It's scraped. He's bleeding. There's fingernail marks, and he's like, yeah, they got me good. I think SEC officials are really good. I just want to say that. But one thing that I think viewers or fans fail to comprehend when it comes to calling a game is that they're not going. They could blow the whistle every time, right? It's just like holding in the NFL. Like, you could call it on every snap, but they're going to let things go that don't create an advantage or disadvantage for either side. And so that's why sometimes you see, in transition, a guy bring the ball up the middle of the court and he might get bumped a little bit. Well, if he doesn't lose the ball or throw it away or get knocked off of his path by a couple of steps, they're going to let it play. Otherwise, the game would have lasted 3.5 hours. So yeah, it's very physical, and quite frankly, I think I'm not as familiar with other conferences because I don't work other conferences, but I think that physical play will come in handy and will help all of the SEC teams once they get in the postseason, where the tempo slows and whistles are less frequent.
Tom Hart, ESPN, is with us, was on the call last night with Tennessee's win against South Carolina, wrapping up a regular season outright championship. We talked about the schedule Tennessee has played. Non-conference, they play tough games with Rick Barnes, but the SEC has seemed as deep and as talented, and I think it's well coached right now. Is that what you've seen calling the different games throughout the league? What do you think about the state of play in the league right now?
Yeah, and I made this comment. I think it was Tuesday night during the Florida-Alabama game. One thing the selection committee needs to keep in mind is the same thing that we talk about ad nauseum during football season, and really the football coaches have driven this point home, that when you go through a gauntlet like we see every football season where you play 4 consecutive incredible games, or just getting through an SEC game, it feels like you don't have a breather. The cumulative toll that takes on a team can be pronounced. I think we saw that Tuesday night from Alabama at Florida, because that was a major letdown performance for them. Not that they lost; it was the way in which they lost. And so when you compare resumes, and just use Arizona, I think, as a fair example and a timely one, they haven't been through nearly the same gauntlet that Tennessee has. And diving into the numbers, that's the first time in Tennessee history that they've won 3 consecutive games, boom, 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 all in a row, back to back to back against top 25 opponents. When you put a schedule together like that, it's going to grind you down. So I think that brings even more value to what they've accomplished. But guys, let's be honest, the flip side of that is, as a coaching staff, you have to be really careful of the mental and physical wear and tear on your team. You've got a regular season championship in your back pocket. You obviously want to beat Kentucky. I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world. I would love to see Tennessee stick around all week in Nashville. Given what the overall goals are and getting to a Final Four and a national championship, I don't know if going deep in Nashville is helpful to that overall cause, given the grind that they've been through.
Yeah, I agree. And the practice style that Rick Barnes employs as well. You mentioned the Florida-Alabama game, and I was thinking about those two teams. Is Alabama a team that's a tournament team that probably has some down stock, and Florida is a team right now that's a tournament team that has some stock going in the right direction? If you had to buy a team, would you buy Florida or would you sell Alabama? Are those two teams the two teams that kind of stand out to you?
If we're talking investments, I'd wait and see what the market looked like on Selection Sunday evening. And the reason I say that is because, yes, I think Florida, their stock is rising for good reason. They're deep. Their front line, especially their younger guys, have gotten so much better and improved over the course of the season. Their guards are electric and combustible. They can beat you in a lot of different ways. They're top 10 in the nation scoring. By the way, 4 teams in the league are top 15 in the country in scoring. I've never seen that. It's an incredible sign of the offensive explosion in this league. However, my counter to that is I'm not ready to sell Bama stock yet, because they could get in a scenario with a matchup or a series of matchups in the postseason where they could go on a deep run. The style they play is relatively unique, in terms of the reliance on the 3 ball and getting to the rim. They're not a great defensive team, but I think that's okay given the right matchup. They could win a lot of shootouts, and they could neutralize certain players. Like, if they're going to face a big who can score, either that guy's going to dominate or he's going to be completely left in the dust based on the tempo. And that's kind of the risk with their thinner front line. So I'm not ready to buy or sell Bama just yet until I see who they're matched up against and what their bracket looks like.
Awesome.
Tom Hart, ESPN. Tom, what's calling a Dalton Knecht game, especially when he gets going like Auburn last week? You were on the call for that one in Knoxville. When he starts hitting threes and he takes off and gets to the lane and dunks it, when he gets in that kind of groove, what's calling that game like?
Well, it's fun because you can see it's much easier, I think, for a viewer and therefore calling the game to explain it. It's much easier to follow the game when there's one guy that you're hyper-focused on. And the Auburn game was a great example. A lot of times as announcers, and we're all guilty of this, we get caught getting too much in the minutia, right? I mean, my football guys that I work with every week want to talk about the A-gap and Monster Blitz, and that's great in press coverage. And most viewers and fans have no idea what that means, even something as simple as the A-gap. It goes over their head. If you try to describe what all 5 guys are doing or even 10 players are doing on one possession, you get lost in the minutia. But when we say, watch Dalton Knecht and how he sets up his defender, who does he have on him? He has a big, he wants to drive and use his speed to get by him. He has a little guy, he wants to probably rise up or see if he can get a switch on the ball screen. And, oh, by the way, a one-dribble pull-up from 15 feet is a great shot for Dalton Knecht, even though statistically that's not a a high percentage yield in the college basketball world, right? So that Auburn game, and it started in the zone. He ran this little Iverson cut where he just flipped over to the right side, buried a three, and then Janai Broom, and they lost him as they tried to pass him through the zone. And then Janai Broom tried to guard him, and he drove on him and dunked on him with two hands. He ran the backdoor cut from the corner with I think it was Adu who passed it to him on a beautiful little backdoor bounce pass. It really simplifies the game, I think, when you can focus on one player. And it also illustrates just how hard it is to defend the guy because he has so many different weapons and ways that he can beat you. It's like defending Dalton Knecht is like defending an elite option quarterback, right? You can take one thing away, but they're built to beat you two other ways, or an RPO quarterback, right? Like, okay, you take that away, I'm going to beat you over here. And even when you do take it away, and he had a couple of shots last night with guys in his face, he can still deliver because of his size and his athleticism.
Tom Hart, ESPN. By the way, Tom, wise move going with the 615 area code for your burner phone because we got a text in our text box that says, Tom Hart with Jimmy Dykes, the best college basketball announcers in all of broadcasting, should be ESPN's #1 crew for all of basketball. So we appreciate you texting the show.
My agent has so many different burner
That's
phones.
a good move, yeah.
Focus on the volunteer station.
Text Jocks, text the zone in Nashville. That's a good way to make it happen. I like that.
I told him to text you, and he goes, the guy with the beard? I said, yeah, the creepy one. So he was all over it.
Yeah, it's really graying a lot. What's going on there? So where will we see and hear you over the next week plus as we're headed toward the postseason?
Saturday, I'll be in Tuscaloosa for Arkansas, Alabama. For an early game on ESPN at noon, and then I'm headed to Nashville. I'll do the whole tournament in Nashville. Well, not the entire tournament, but I'll be there through the championship game. I'll be working the night side on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday with VFL Dane Bradshaw. I don't know if you guys know this. He once zipped line off of the Sun Spear. I think he went up there looking for the Simpsons wig shop. It's really weird. He's a weird dude. And then working the semis in the finals with Jimmy Dykes and Marty Smith. I don't know if you know this, but Marty has a country accent.
He's very popular.
Yeah,
very popular.
He's got great hair.
Yeah, a bit of a VFL takeover because Ron Slay will be there. Dane will be there.
Oh my God, Slay's going to be there?
Yeah.
Katie Bar.
He's going to travel in.
He will.
yeah, he'll probably put in for per diem.
Yep.
And mileage.
The Boom Boom Room doesn't pay for itself, Tom Hart. ESPN on the call last night, a number of Tennessee games this season, on the call of last night's championship clincher for the Vols. Tom, thanks for taking time to join us today. Always great to talk to you.
You guys are absolutely the best. I don't care what Jimmy Himes says. I really like you.
He's retired. Don't matter what he thinks anyways.
That's it. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, fellas. See
Tom
ya.
Hart.